was death, and hell followed with him.
Listen to the sound of footsteps in the dark, to voices that may not be quite human, to the sound of screams in the night. The Haunted Cabaret, the home of all things horror, on Rhode with your host, George Garner. The Haunted Cabaret starts now. All right, that was Black Sabbath, Hole in the Sky, starting off this week's Haunted Cabaret. I'm your host, George Garner. Sitting across from me, Chuckles the Clown. To my left, Nurse Misery. To my right, our producer, Tony Jones. And behind me, I don't want to turn and look because there are occasional strange noises back there. But the first thing I need to do is compliment Chuckles the Clown. I'll tell you, that is whose show preceded this one, obviously. that was the most awesome segue of music transitioning to the haunting. When the man comes, what was the Johnny Cash song you played?
When
as
the Man
outro?
Comes Around.
When the man comes around, yes. A very chilling, proving two things. One is that the Christian mythos can produce some very chilling things, because that raises the hair on the arms. The other one is, I don't know, sometimes awesome segues just happen between shows as well as on them.
Yeah, I didn't plan that at all. I just said this is an awesome song and it has to go on there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, from that song to my intro, it's beautiful, a thing of beauty. And also a thing of beauty is the subject for this week's Haunted Cabaret. Evil children. Chuckles, were you an evil child?
No.
When did you become evil?
Coventry High School.
Coventry High School?
Probably the high school. Now, this is my fourth time around, so yeah. I didn't even know I was going to be a clown again after my rebirth. I mean.
Okay. Because, yeah, the reason I got this idea, this just goes to show how, some things that you think mean one thing mean another, at least in my mind. I saw on the news where it's pretty typical nowadays. This guy doesn't get any extra credit. But a father shot his wife and 2 kids to death, and his reason was that the kids were becoming monsters. That was the headline, shot the kids because the kids were becoming monsters. Now, if you're finished reading the article, you'll find out that it just meant they were misbehaving and disrespecting their father. Yeah. Of course, I just looked at the headline and I took it I can't help it. I took it literally. I took it literally. Because and I don't blame myself, because I remember a Stephen King story, one of the more obscure ones, called Suffer the Little Children, which tells the story of a teacher who apparently goes crazy and shoots all the kids in her kindergarten class because they've actually been taken over by alien creatures from another dimension, and she's the only one that knows it.
Wow.
And now you can see why now whenever I hear about like that guy that went to the preschool and shot all those kids dead, you know what I'm saying? At first I gave him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to. I mean, how do you know those kids were not alien monsters from another dimension masquerading as children?
Yep.
Right? It could happen.
You never know. There's a possibility. It's
Yes.
plausible.
It is, at least to the people around this table, that is very, very plausible. So, yeah, after I finished reading the article and found out that, monsters is only a figure of speech in that article, I started thinking about other evil children. And, like Chuckles, you've said, movies, comic books. Fiction is full of them. Fiction is full of evil children. And I don't know.
It's got to be inspired from somewhere.
They do. Well, I mean, there's 3 kinds, actually. Because I gave this a little bit of thought. I started to think about this subject, and I actually made a page of notes. Now, anyone here in the studio knows I very seldom do that. But this is a little bit more complicated than I first thought it was, because apparently there's 3 kinds of evil children. There's the born bad. There's the demon-possessed evil, or, demon-originated evil child. And then there's the alien monster, or aliens from another dimension originated evil children. So, starting off with the born bad, which is actually it's my favorite, because a lot of left-leaning liberal psychologists don't like to believe that there is such a thing. There is. I mean, there's really no other explanation for a kid that's 10 years old and sets his mother's house on fire and burns her alive because she took away his Xbox. I mean, that's not learned behavior. The best example of this, movie-wise, is a movie called The Bad Seed from the 60s, and I recommend this to Chuckles. Mm-hmm. Watch it when you get a chance. You will want to reach into the TV and grab this girl by the neck and start strangling, kind of like Homer does on The Simpsons to Bart, because that's how infuriating she is. My other classic evil kid is, well, I guess he's born bad, but it's not really his fault because he's a mutant. Anybody remember a Twilight Zone episode called "It's a Good Life," where Billy Mummy from Lost in Space, before he became a member of Lost in Space, has psychic powers that grant him anything he wants all the time?
I do not remember that one.
Okay. Well, that's your homework. And to anyone listening to my voice who doesn't remember this Twilight Zone episode, your homework is to dig up a copy of the Twilight Zone episode called It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Good Life, excuse me. Wonderful Life, that's something different.
Yeah, that would have been Christmas.
Yeah. Well, that's a horror movie in itself, as far as I'm concerned. That has a horrible side. But, yeah, the episode is called It's a Good Life. And watch that. You'll see what I mean. And you'll also see what I mean when I say that it makes you wonder if Lost in Space was just one long involved figment of this kid's imagination. But you'll see what I mean, after you watch that Twilight Zone episode. Now, Chuckles. Now, you're beginning to smile. Are you thinking evil thoughts?
Oh, and you say Evil Children. One of my favorite movies comes to head.
Which is?
Omen.
Damien.
Absolutely.
Damien is awesome.
Damien, yes. And obviously, as always, we're not talking about the remake.
No.
They can take
No,
that
no,
remake, they can crumple up the copies and shove it up their unholy behinds. Yeah, the original Omen, that is the most evil kid. I mean, am I the only one that believes that kid is the real thing?
That very convincing evil little bastard to me.
That, yes. The ultimate evil, satanic, antichrist kid.
I wonder if that carried through his school years, like afterwards trying to be in class or anything like that. I wonder if that performance ruined his childhood and to this day.
I mean, he could have been picked on.
Oh, no, you would not pick on that kid if you thought he did what he did. No, you would not pick on him. You would be feared by him, and you would be isolated.
They might be making him prove it.
No, I don't think so.
Well, a good question is what happened to him, because I think the last we ever saw of that kid was in Omen Part 2, right, when he was a young teenager, 12 years old, 13 years old. I'm wondering if maybe the Catholic Church took him a little bit too seriously, and maybe he's in the bowels of some dungeon right now being exorcised.
He could be. He's locked up right next to the alien that they found.
Yeah, Nurse Misery. Let's find out what happened to Damien.
Working on it.
Yeah, the second one was, the remake was basically the first one, just with special effects. There was no need for it.
None whatsoever.
The only cool thing I remember about the remake coming out was it came out on 6/6/6. And I remember Nurse Misery and I walking through a cluster of nuns telling us we were going to go to hell for watching this movie.
Still?
And I turned to them and said, "Too late, I've already been there, hell 2.0. And she just gave me a dirty look.
Now, my only question would be if those nuns were actually shills.
I don't know.
I mean, I really have a hard time believing that the Catholic Church is that fanatical and rabid about
a
horror
me too. Maybe
movie
they
at
didn't.
this late date.
Yeah, they probably didn't give a crap.
No, I think they were plants. I really do. Kind of like a wrestling angle.
You think so? To give the movie more promotion?
Absolutely. Kind of like back in the 1950s with the old directors, they used to have a nurse in the lobby in case anybody died of a heart attack during the movie, that type of thing. Nuns outside the Omen. Yeah, in the 21st century, yeah.
That was unneeded. They just took the remake and put special effects in it, and you didn't need those.
No,
the first one was just as good.
Yeah, now if it was a movie like, let me think now, like Last Temptation of Christ or something like that, what I'm saying, then they turn out for real. And even then, I mean, I don't know what the point is, because every time the Catholic Church protests a movie,
we go watch it even more.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blockbuster every single time. So, yeah. But no, I'll go with those nuns being plants. That's my thought on the subject.
So I was in a horror comedy called None of That, where I played a 7-foot nun.
Okay.
And the Catholic Church didn't actually come out and protest. They did, however, send a nasty letter in the mail regarding None of That.
Really?
So they're still looking at stuff like that. But yeah, I think the days of them actually going out in force, I don't even think that they have the finances to do that anymore.
Well, they have the finances, but it's all locked up in the Vatican. Okay, Nurse Misery, you have the requisite information. Damien, a.k.a.